You've seen it 1,000 times, right? The hero, the ticking clock, the impossible choice. Hollywood just loves to tell us that sometimes torture is a necessary evil to save the day. But what happens when that TV fantasy bleeds into real-world policy? Well, that's what we're going to get into. We're going to pull back the curtain on the evidence and really take apart one of the most powerful and dangerous myths of our time. And it starts right here. I mean, this is unbelievable. In 2007, a sitting U.S. Supreme Court Justice, Antonin Scalia, actually used Jack Bauer, a fictional character from the show 24, to make a real-world legal argument. He wasn't citing case law. He was citing a TV show. This is just how deep the fiction had wormed its way into reality. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This wasn't just some off-the-cuff cultural reference. No, it was a sign of something much more serious. The lines were blurring, and a Hollywood plot device was about to become a permission slip for real-world government action. All right, so let's start by laying out the two extremes. We're going to look at the fantasy we were all sold on TV versus the grim reality that was happening in the shadows. Okay, so on one side, you've got the Hollywood fantasy, right? The counter-terrorist unit from 24. It's all high-tech, sleek, and surgically precise. But on the other side, you have the reality, a CIA black site in Afghanistan, codenamed Cobalt, but better known as the Salt Pit. It wasn't a high-tech facility, it was an old, abandoned brick factory. There was no giant clock on the wall, just total darkness and loud music, 24/7. And just let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't about getting a quick answer to stop a bomb. The CIA's own people called it a dungeon. The entire system, the whole environment, was specifically engineered not to get information, but to literally break a human being. And this is the tragic result of that system. Gul Rahman was a detainee at the Salt Pit. He wasn't a taking bomb mastermind. He was a man who was shackled to a concrete floor and froze to death. The catastrophic event that was supposed to justify his treatment, it was a complete fiction. His death didn't save anyone. So you have to ask, if this whole scenario doesn't come from real-life spycraft, where on earth did it come from? Well, it turns out its birthplace wasn't the battlefield, but the classroom. It's basically a philosophical cheat code. Check out this timeline. It's a pretty wild journey. The idea starts way back in 1804 as a thought experiment by the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. You know, the classic, needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Then, fast forward over 150 years, and it gets weaponized in a novel about the Algerian War to excuse French torture. And then, after 9/11, it's pulled off the shelf again and proposed as an actual legal tool here in the US through the idea of torture warrants. See, the whole thought experiment only works because it cheats. It relies on 4 things that you can almost never, ever know for sure in the real world. You have to be absolutely certain you have the right person, who you know has the right info, and that torturing them will definitely work. All while a disaster is seconds away from happening. If even one of those certainties is missing, well, the whole argument just falls apart. So how did this philosophical fantasy get turned into a real, systematic government program? Let's take a look at the actual machinery of what they called enhanced interrogation. It all hinged on some very clever and very dangerous legal gymnastics. The infamous Bybee memo basically redefined the word torture. They argued that an act wasn't torture unless it caused pain equal to organ failure or death. This created a gigantic legal loophole for all sorts of techniques that anyone, using plain English, would absolutely call torture. Just think about that number for a second, 183. The whole ticking bomb idea is sold as this one-time desperate act, but 183, that's not a desperate act, that's a repetitive, systematic process. It has absolutely nothing to do with some kind of immediate emergency. And it's the same story here. Keeping someone awake for 180 hours straight, I mean, that's 7.5 days. You're not trying to get a quick answer at that point. You're trying to induce psychosis. You're trying to completely shatter a person's mind. And then there was the sound. This is maybe one of the most surreal and psychologically cruel parts of the whole program, the torture playlist. The goal wasn't just to be annoying. Imagine being locked in a dark room while the Barney theme song or the Meow Mix cat food jingle is blasted at you on a loop for days. It's designed to create this profound mental breakdown, to literally shatter your sense of reality. Okay, so this brings us to the big question, the bottom line. Let's put aside the morality of it for just a second and ask, did any of this stuff actually work? Did it stop attacks? Well, after years of digging,
The most comprehensive official review ever done, the Senate Intelligence Committee report, asked that very question. Did these so-called enhanced interrogation techniques give us unique intelligence that actually saved lives? And the answer from that 6,700-page report was a clear, definitive, and resounding no.
The case of Abu Zubaydah is the perfect example of this failure. Before the CIA started its enhanced program, standard old-school FBI interrogation methods got him to identify the mastermind of 9/11. That's a huge intelligence win. But after he was waterboarded 83 times, what happened? He became, and this is a quote from the CIA's own files, completely unresponsive. The torture didn't get more information. It shut it down completely.
And it gets worse. Not only did torture fail to stop threats, it actively created new ones. The false information that was tortured out of a detainee named Ibn al-Sheikh al-Libi became a central piece of the justification for invading Iraq in 2003. He later admitted he just made it all up. He told them what he thought they wanted to hear so the pain would stop. So think about that. Torture didn't stop a bomb. It helped start a war.
So why is it such a catastrophic failure? Well, the answer isn't just about psychology, it's about biology. The entire premise of the ticking time bomb is, frankly, scientifically illiterate. So let's get into the neuroscience a little bit. There's a part of your brain called the hippocampus. It's basically your memory hub. Now, when you're under extreme, prolonged stress, like being tortured, your body gets flooded with a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is literally toxic to the hippocampus. It degrades it, it damages it. And this is the fundamental scientific takeaway. Torture doesn't unlock secrets from the brain. It physically damages the very part of the brain you need to recall complex, accurate information. You're not unlocking a vault. You're just smashing the machine. A broken brain simply cannot give you the truth. So let's put it all side by side. This table just perfectly shows the massive gap between the myth and the reality on every single point. The threat, the subject, the method, the result, the cost, in every single category. The reality was the polar opposite of the clean, heroic fiction we saw on our TV screens. And the cost? It wasn't just moral, it was strategic. Top U.S. military interrogators like Matthew Alexander have said it themselves. The torture program became the #1 recruiting tool for our enemies. The very policy that was supposed to stop terrorists ended up creating more of them. In the end, the ticking time bomb is a comfortable story. It gives us an easy way out of a hard problem, but the evidence is overwhelming. It's a lie. And that leaves all of us with a much more difficult question. What is the real cost when a nation chooses to build its security not on evidence, but on a dangerous and destructive myth?